What a day. Oh my God, the NHL absolutely exploded today. And before we get into the biggest news, which is Erik Karlsson, let's touch up on some of the other things that happened today. All right, first up, nothing crazy here. Oliver Ekman-Larsson named the captain of the Coyotes. Obviously, we all knew that was going to happen. No need to waste any time on this. Next up, we have Justin Williams, the newest captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. I personally would have given it to Jordan Staal because he has been there longer. He's been more loyal. But, Justin Williams is also a great option. Three-time Cup champion. Mr. Game 7, Conn Smythe winner. He's obviously a good choice. Next up, coming from Dallas, some pretty big news. Tyler Seguin signs a contract extension worth 8 years for $9.8 million per season. And now they have Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin locked up long-term, both making less than $10 million. For me, that's great. They got their core locked up. Great contract for Tyler Seguin. I totally think that's a steal. I think Seguin could have easily gotten what Tavares got, $11 million per season. But I guess he took a pay cut for Dallas, so that's good for them. Now let's move on to the big news of the day. Erik Karlsson traded to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for, wait, I have to read it here because it's so much. Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, Josh Norris, Rudolphs, Balcers. I'm pretty sure he's made up. 2020 first, 2020 second, and 2 conditional picks. Now, it seems like a lot. Like, wow, Ottawa got a lot. But they got a lot of nothing. I mean, no disrespect to all those guys. But Erik Karlsson, man, Erik Karlsson is the best defenseman in the NHL. He's one of the best of our generation. Erik Karlsson gets way too disrespected. He is one of the best defensemen to ever play the game. One of the best, for sure, top 5, maybe top 10. I don't really know. There is a lot of good defensemen that played the game, so I'll give him the top 10. He's a top 10 all-time, but he gets too much disrespected because he's not good defensively, which is false. He used to be not good defensively, like 5-6 years ago, but he alone is the reason why the Senators got to the 3rd round a couple of years ago. He alone is the reason why the Senators were 1 goal away from reaching the finals. He put the Penguins in double overtime. It was all Erik Karlsson. And I know Senators fans can agree with me with this, but the Senators were not a good team. It was all Erik Karlsson, who was doing it on like half a leg or whatever. He had his foot, I forget what happened, but his ankle, something was wrong with his foot, and he brought the Senators to double overtime in the 3rd round. Not only do I think he's the best defenseman, but I also think he's a top 5 player in general. Crosby, McDavid, Malkin. I have him right there, maybe at number 4, number 5. That he's that good, but no one realizes because he's playing with the Ottawa Senators. Now he's going to prove how good he is with the San Jose Sharks. Now, before we get into what this means for the Sharks and what Erik Karlsson brings to the Sharks, first of all, we already know what he brings. But before we do get to that part of the video, let's talk about what the Senators got here in return. First up, we got Chris Tierney. He just turned 24 years of age. He's a solid 3rd liner, potential to be maybe a solid 2nd liner, maybe even a 1st liner on Ottawa because they're not that good. Great player, can play on their team this year and can also be part of their future. So I guess that's a good player to bring back in that trade. Next up, we have 25-year-old defenseman Dylan DeMello. He's in the phase right now where he's not really a prospect anymore. He could still get a little bit better, but this is what you have in him. In my opinion, he's a bottom 6 guy, bottom pair guy. He may crack the top 4 in Ottawa, but that's not really a good thing for him. That's more of a bad thing for Ottawa because he shouldn't really be in your top 4. Good player, I guess, but I mean, nothing special. Then we have 19-year-old defenseman Josh Norris, who was drafted 19th overall in last year's draft. I do think Josh Norris will be a good player. I did some research on him. He seems like he's going to be a solid top 4 defenseman in the future. Obviously has 3, maybe 4 years left until he does make the NHL. But regardless, he will be a good player. But that's not sure, though. We don't know. But he's projected to be a good player. And then we have Rudolph Balcers. I still think he's a made-up guy. No, but for real, though, he's 21 years old, forward. Apparently was one of the top rookies in the AHL, so another good player. Might turn out to be a strong 3rd liner, maybe decent 2nd liner, probably a 1st liner on Ottawa because they're not that strong. And then, of course, they're getting the 1st, the 2nd, all those draft picks. So overall, Ottawa is getting a lot of players. Like, every player they got back in this deal, I think should and will make the NHL, but that's besides the point. They traded Erik Karlsson, the best defenseman in the game, their franchise player, and got back. To me, this is nothing. For Erik Karlsson, they could have gotten back elite prospects, 1st-round picks, more elite prospects, but they got a bunch of, 3rd liners, maybe 2nd liners. Like, we don't know yet. They got a lot of question marks. When you're trading a guy like Erik Karlsson, I'm expecting to get a bunch of, for sure, 1st liners, for sure, top pairing defensemen, guys that that are going to be good. I really do like what the Sharks did, though, because they played the waiting game. They were really patient with this. They could have made this trade back in July when they just lost out on Tavares, because they were the second team in on Tavares, but obviously lost out on him. They could have easily went out and right there gone for plan B, which would have been Karlsson. But they waited. They probably did try, but they waited, and now look, they gave up a punch of nothing and got back easily the best defenseman in the NHL. I just still can't believe that's all the Senators got back in Erik Karlsson. That's all they got back. Meanwhile, Pacioretty arguably got a better return earlier this week. Adam Larson last year or 2 years ago got a better return in Taylor Hall. Now, before we move on, I just want to say I feel so bad for Senators fans. Like, if you know any Senators fans, like, go give them a hug, because they really need that right now. This whole year was a disaster for the Ottawa Senators, and now they ended by trading their franchise defenseman, their captain, for pretty much nothing in return. And I even tweeted this, but usually there's a bright side to bad situations. There always has to be a bright side. Like, okay, we lost Karlsson, but at least, you know, bright side. But the Senators have no bright side, because the bright side would have been the first overall pick. They're closer to Jack Hughes. But that's a bright side for Colorado, not for them. I've never seen something like this. Like, I've never seen a team be so screwed like this ever in my life. They should have just given Colorado the pick this year, so then Colorado gets Brady Tkachuk, and then they can go now trade Karlsson. Maybe if they want to trade Duchesne, just trade everyone, and then they're pretty much for sure going to get Hughes and start the rebuild. But now, you're never going to forget that as a Senators fan if Colorado gets Hughes with your draft pick. You're never going to forget that. When Hughes goes on to Colorado with McKinnon, they're going to go on and win cups, do all that stuff. They're never going to forget that. That's going to be something that's going to be in their minds forever. Man, we were making fun of Joe Sakic back like 2 years ago when they were last place and he wasn't trading none of the players. How can you go from being the worst team in the NHL by far and not, you know, trade anyone? And we made fun of him, but that trade was one of the best trades I've seen. The return he got on that, and on top of it, he could still get the first overall pick. That's just a crazy trade. I really do feel bad for Senators fans, but I do have some advice, though. If you thought last year was bad, this year might be even worse, because at least last year, going into the season, you were supposed to be good. Like, you guys thought you were going to be good coming off of the third round exit. You guys thought you were going to come into the next season and be, you know, one of the top teams in the Atlantic Division. But instead, it was just a surprise. It was a shock. This year, though, you guys know you're going to be bad. You're going to be even worse than last year. And then at least, okay, we're going to be bad, but we're going to get a good pick. No, you're not, because you don't have your own first-round pick. So, I don't know. I really do feel bad for the Senators, but, you know, just hang in there. It'll get better, I guess. I don't know. Now let's talk what the San Jose Sharks get in this trade. Obviously, they get Erik Karlsson, but the most impressive thing here is that they didn't touch a single player from the roster except for Chris Tierney. So they're pretty much swapping Chris Tierney for Erik Karlsson, which I would do 10 out of 10 times. Now the Sharks have one of the best defensive defensemen in Marc-Edouard Vlasic. They have one of the best offensive defensemen in Brent Burns. And then they have now the best defenseman in Erik Karlsson. That's a pretty nice top four. And then Justin Braun to complete that top four. That's really scary. You know, just Brent Burns and Karlsson on that same team. Oh my goodness. And then they still have a pretty stacked offense. They got Logan Couture, Thomas Hertl, Pavelski, Thornton, Evander Kane. Oh my God, I completely forgot about Evander Kane. I'm kind of scared of the Sharks now. I forgot that they have Evander Kane. And now they just added Erik Karlsson. This is a crazy team right now. And Martin Jones is also a beast in the net. You know, NHL, we should be scared of the Sharks next year. But as Penguins fans, I'm not too scared of them. But the rest of the NHL, you should be scared of them. I'll be shocked if the Sharks don't make it to at least the Western Conference Final. You know, Erik Karlsson alone carried his weak Ottawa Senators to the third round. Imagine what he'll do with a team that is already pretty good to go to the third round by themselves. Now they just add Karlsson to the team. I'll be shocked if they don't win the cup. But, you know, obviously the best team never really wins the cup. This isn't basketball. You know, hockey's an interesting sport. Now, the one interesting thing about this trade is that there was no extension a part of it. Like, Pacioretty went to Vegas and right away signed his extension. But that's not a part of this trade. So that doesn't mean he's going to leave for sure. He can easily get the deal done throughout the season. But if he does leave, if it's just 1 year in San Jose, that's still a good trade. Like, they didn't give up anything where it's like, you know, losing Karlsson now hurts because you gave up all this and you don't keep Karlsson. What they gave up is worth Karlsson for 1 year. Like, I'll give up, if as a Penguins fan, I would give up all that for Karlsson for just 1 year. If Erik Karlsson is a rental and is only going to stay there for 1 year, let me tell you this, San Jose, this is your chance to win. I don't care what you do. You better go all in because you're never going to get this chance again. You just added the best defenseman in the NHL. You know, Joe Thornton isn't getting much younger. His time is running out. Your whole team isn't getting much younger. You know, they have some older players on that team. You know, this could be their last chance. Now, unless they do sign him to a contract extension, then you know, I could see the Sharks winning multiple cups down the road. And as a Penguins fan, I would love to see the Sharks win the cup. Of course, if we're not going to win, you know, first I want us to win, but then if we're not going to win, I would love to see the Sharks win, mainly because of Joe Thornton. I really do think Joe Thornton deserves a cup, and it would be a shame to see him retire with no Stanley Cup. Even in 2016, when we beat them in the finals, before both teams got to the finals, I was rooting for the Sharks as a team that I would like to see win the cup. Of course, not thinking we were going to make it there, because I thought that would be too good to be true, us making it to the finals. So I was like, okay, if the Penguins do get eliminated, I would love to see the Sharks make it all the way. But then both teams made it to the finals, and that thought ended real quick. I wanted the Penguins to destroy the Sharks. Overall, in my opinion, the Sharks bombed this trade in the good way. I think they destroyed the Senators. Senators lost their captain, franchise defenseman, and got pretty much a bunch of future question marks. We don't know if they're going to be good or not. Meanwhile, the Sharks are getting the best defenseman in the NHL right now, and if they do end up signing him, they win this trade even more. You know what's sad? Colorado won this trade more than the Senators, and Colorado wasn't even involved. It's just because now that the Senators are even worse, they still have the first-round pick, and it looks like they are going to get Jack Hughes. And if they don't get Jack Hughes, they're for sure going to get a top 5 pick. There's no way Ottawa doesn't finish bottom 5 in the league without Karlsson. Give me your thoughts on this trade. This is easily the biggest trade I've seen in my life, or at least one of the biggest trades, just because you don't really see, you know, franchise players moving like this usually through trade. So this is definitely one of the biggest trades I've witnessed in my life as a hockey fan. Now, before I end the video, I want to say that I was supposed to do a prospect pyramid video today, you know, like Steve Dangle did for the Leafs. I was going to do one for the Penguins, but this got in the way, so I did this instead. So I'm just letting you guys know that that prospect pyramid video will come sometime next week. I'll say maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, maybe Sunday, really around there. So I don't know, stay tuned for that. I think the Sharks won this trade, but obviously you guys may think differently, so let me know in the comments what you guys think. For the Senators fans that are watching, let me know how you feel, and Sharks fans, let me know how you guys feel. I mean, I don't know if I have that big of an audience just yet, so I mean, for the Penguins fans that are watching though, you guys, let me know what you feel about this trade. Comment down below all your thoughts. Let's have a discussion in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.